Hi guys, welcome to So Janelle. I'm your host, Janelle So, coming to you today from the Great Hall here at the United States Department of Labor here in Washington, D.C. You will remember that we were just here last month celebrating Filipino American History Month. And so today we are excited, pleased, happy, napakasaya po natin na patuloy po ang ating pagdiriwang. The celebration continues as today 3 Filipino labor leaders are inducted into the Hall of Honor.
"37 years ago, I was inspired to lead a life of public service by the courageous men we honor today. With deepest respect and reverence, I remember them as our beloved manos, the Ilocano term of respect for old brother. Sisters and brothers, together we stand on the shoulders of those who struggled, labored, and organized before us, and in doing so, blazed a trail for us. Today we do right by the people's history and honor Manong Modesto Larry Dulay Itliong, Manong Philip Villamin Vera Cruz, and Manong Peter Gines Velasco, who were leaders of the September 8th original strikers of AWOC, and that's the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, AFL-CIO, and co-founders of the UFW, the great United Farm Workers of America.
Each of these labor leaders advocate for those who were invisible and did not have a voice. Our manos, the immigrants, the farm workers. They truly embodied the struggle, the resistance, the solidarity, and the resilience of the Delano grape strike, which played a pivotal role in the labor and civil rights history.
This is an incredible celebration of community. The Department of Labor's Hall of Honor is a way that we acknowledge the heroes of labor in America. And some of them are well known. Some of them are elected officials. But in my time, I have wanted to induct workers who have been invisible or forgotten, who are not well known but should be. So 60 years ago, they worked on the great fields of Delano, California, where workers toiled under brutal conditions for meager wages. This was a system designed to extract cheap labor from human beings. It was not an aberration, it was a system sustained by indifference at best, and more often, dehumanization. Yet in that harsh environment, something extraordinary happened. These 3 individuals looked at the inhospitable fields and saw the possibility for justice. They dared to imagine a world in which they and those around them could actually create change. And in demanding fairness in the fields, they changed the course of history. In the early 1960s, there were 2 farm worker organizations, one made up mostly of Latino farm workers, and the other of Filipino workers, the Associated Workers Organizing Committee. And it was the Filipino farm workers who first walked off the fields in 1965, calling for a strike. They asked the Latino workers to join them in their strike. But at that time, Cesar Chavez and his colleagues didn't believe that their young union was ready for a big strike. Now, the Latino workers ultimately decided to join the Filipino farm workers, and together they made the Delano grape strike one of the most impactful in US history. And the solidarity they built, that's right, let's recognize that. And the solidarity they built through hard work and struggle gave birth to the United Farm Workers, which has now been fighting for dignity and respect for farm workers in the fields for 6 decades. So it was Larry Itliong, with his fierce intellect and strategic mind, who organized Filipino farm workers to say enough, and to say we have to go on strike, and who went to Cesar Chavez to ask him to join. It was Vera Cruz, with so much eloquence and resolve, insisted that movements must transcend their leaders to endure. And it was Peter Velasco, who was so steadfast and principled in unifying the Filipino community with a quiet determination that proved unshakable. The demand for a union rippled across America and around the world, and it affirmed a basic truth that is a driving belief of this administration, that when workers do well, everybody does better. And that when workers join together in common cause, when they raise their voice, when they come together, when they recognize that what's good for everybody is solidarity, that is not a threat to democracy. It is its lifeblood. So today, while immigrants are being attacked and scapegoated for political gain, we proudly honor 3 Filipino immigrants who represent the best of what our country can be. And we place them in the Hall of Honor so they can take their rightful place in American history. And we do this not merely to memorialize, but also to remind ourselves of what remains unfinished. Larry, Philip, and Peter's stories are not only being celebrated today, they are still being written in the fields across this country, in workplaces all across the world, and by all of us. I also want to note that we honor 3 incredible men, but it is 3 incredible women who were part of their lives, who are here today, and we honor you as well.
My name is Sandra Itliong-Bowman. I am proud to be the daughter of Larry Itliong, who had the heart and soul to fight for equal rights and justice for the Filipino American farm workers. My father's story is one of bravery, resilience, triumph, and now recognition. From his early years coming to America from the Philippines as a young teenager, without his parents, and the challenges of the growers who mistreated laborers and farm workers, and to become one of the greatest labor leaders and organizers to lead the largest strike walkout in modern agricultural history. He made many sacrifices to his personal life to be the voice of his people, and quote, "The Constitution said that everybody has equal rights and justice. You have to make that come about. They're not going to give it to you." We stand here before you, the children and grandchildren of Larry Itliong, all working in the public sector, in education, including retired military. We all have the desire to help our communities, which was influenced by my father and grandfather who inspired us. Lastly, I am proud, excited, pleased, and thankful to stand here and bear witness to the induction of my father, Larry Itliong, Uncle Pete Velasco, Uncle Vera Cruz, into the Hall of Honor. This has been a long time coming for our families, and to gain this recognition that we all know they deserve.
Philip and I had a very special relationship which bridged many divides. He was a seasoned labor organizer. I was a young lawyer, barely out of law school. He was a Filipino American. I was a young woman who in common parlance would be called white. Philip was in the autumn of his life. I was young. Philip was educated, having had some college. I was a law school graduate. I never really liked to cook. Philip made great chicken adobo. We were brought together over our passion for justice for farm workers. He was on the executive board, one of the vice presidents of the UFW. I was an inexperienced organizer and then lawyer for the union. In those days, it was hard for a young woman lawyer working in a labor union to be respected. Philip did respect me, and we loved each other. Philip also cared about world peace. I have no doubt that if Philip were alive today, he would be appalled by the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And he would be calling for an end to the destruction of schools, universities, hospitals, and homes. The destruction of whole families and whole communities in Palestine. And finally, I would note that Philip spent a lot of time going to college campuses to explain to the students the conditions of farm workers and to promote the boycotts of grapes and lettuce. I often accompanied Philip on these trips. Along with Philip, I enjoyed meeting with students who, as in the case of students today, cared about social justice and didn't shy away from asking the tough questions. So thank you, everybody. This is a wonderful celebration. I'm happy to be a part of it.
We also extend our heartfelt congratulations to Pete Velasco, whose legacy and friendship meant so much to my father. Uncle Pete worked side by side with my father, sharing the same vision, struggles, and triumphs. Together, they ignited a movement that changed the course of the labor rights for so many people, particularly Filipinos and Mexican farm workers, who were often overlooked. This induction into the Labor Hall of Honor reminds us that our work continues to inspire new generations in the labor movement. Thank you for this recognition. It's a tribute to my father, to Uncle Pete, and to everyone who believed in and fought for a more just world. Mabuhay.
We are by the Hall of Honor here inside the United States Department of Labor here in Washington, D.C., where today they just inducted 3 of our esteemed Filipino labor leaders, Larry Dulay Itliong, Vera Cruz, and Peter Gines Velasco into this Hall of Honor. We can't be more proud as Filipinos, and if you missed my opening earlier, as we celebrated Filipino American History Month last month, we are continuing this celebration with this honor and the gathering of community.
What if this is the last chance to win a better wage? We're not getting any younger, the time is right now.
What about our families? We all need to eat.
Hey, we can still negotiate.
I'll negotiate with my knife. Everyone, we need to be united in our strategy.
Strategy?
I move that we vote to go on strike. What do you think, Larry?
We are not poor or uneducated. We're determined and dignified, fighting for the right to win a better life. And this nation, the supposed land of the free, it will never be given to us. Don't you see how the white man treats us? How tough they are on us? Well, we can be just as tough and just as mean. I want those in favor to stand with your hands raised.
I began working on a musical named Larry the Musical: An American Journey. I felt that our historical dreams, hopes, and struggles as a Filipino American community had to be written with joy, humor, and of course with music. I'm glad other artists felt the same way. I worked with composer Brian Pangilinan for 5 years, wonderful collaborator and artist, with a small but mighty Filipino American creative team, which included Broadway choreographer and director Billy Bustamante, and co-composer and musical director Sean Khanna, and I cannot forget my own team at home, my husband Francis, because childcare is labor. It is real labor. And we premiered last April in San Francisco to 23 sold-out shows and 8,000 audience members who were mostly a majority Filipino. In creating this musical, we wanted to see the women working in the community alongside the men. And there were tough, smart, resilient Pinays stabilizing our Filipino American communities then as they are now. We also wanted to see this community, their pain and their love for one another, rise to meet the moment and begin forming labor unions throughout the West Coast from the 1920s to the 1960s. We also wanted to investigate how our community raised its leaders, like the complex, brilliant strategist Larry Itliong, whose world included other leaders who were just as brilliant, such as Philip and Peter. We also wanted more than anything for our Filipino American community to see themselves in this story and be inspired to build together like Larry, Philip, and Pete had to do in their lifetime.
I see you, you see me. Together we tell our story. Can't you see? Who we are? We must fight for our rights. United we stand strong and march for truth, march for peace, march for hope. March as one, fight as one family.
The song you'll hear our beautiful cast singing is Protest, the moment the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, led by Larry, decided to vote to go on strike on September 7th, 1965. This song also portrays what happened the next day when over 1,500 Filipinos walked off the grape fields on September 8th, ultimately changing the course of their lives and our lives by starting the Delano grape strike. Thank you, Larry, Philip, and Pete. Thank you also to those in this room whose scholarly, cultural, and community work paved the way for us to be here today. And thank you to our heroes' families for sharing your loved ones with our community and the world.
I want all those in favor to raise their hands.
Let's fight for the Together we rise.
The heart of the Filipino is revolution.
Then let's go.
What's the plan, Larry?
We show up like any other harvest. We'll pluck the grapes from the vines, but we won't pack them, just drop them and walk. So the growers only have two choices: a whole season ruined, or pay us what we ask for, and we finish the job!
Cut, drop, leave it and walk. Leave it and walk. Cut, drop, and leave it and walk.
The Manongs, or the first wave that came to the U.S., had a very difficult life. Not only could they not read or speak English, they often accepted the low pay and deplorable housing conditions. By 1965, they were no longer farm workers, and the Delano grape strike was a significant event in Filipino American history. The three inductees took a stand and led 1,500 Filipino farm workers to strike against 10 grape vineyards around Delano, California. They demanded a raise in both their hourly wages from $1.25 to $1.40, and in the piece rate from 10 cents a box to 25 cents. Their dedication to the movement brought pride to the Filipino American community, and all of us have better lives because of their sacrifice. And today, I'm honored to be a part of the celebration. Thank you.
Any event like this takes a tremendous amount of work and coordination. For us, though, and for my team, it's really a pleasure to do something like this because it's an opportunity for us not just to honor individuals, but to bring a whole community together. And it was really, you know, it was very emotional for me to get to do that. And I think in addition to those workers being honored, in addition to their family members, you know, recognizing that the impact of their father, their partner endures even when they're no longer here. This was also a chance to say to a community, right, that your stories deserve to be told. And I think, you know, representation matters. And when you have people in positions who see communities, who come from communities, you know, that's one way that we get stories told. Because I do think that in any story, right, you have so much that doesn't get told. And for anybody who stands up against injustice, who fights, who takes risks, there's people around them who support them doing that too. And so we got to see today that, you know, it was children, it was partners, and a lot of times, you know, the same way that these are, you know, Filipino farm workers whose stories are untold, a lot of times the stories of the women who are involved in movements also, you know, aren't always highlighted as much. So I was very proud to see that happen here today. We are in a moment where workers have been able to exercise their power, to organize, to improve their working conditions under President Biden, who is the most pro-worker, pro-union president this country has ever seen. And that power is there, and workers, once they feel their power, are not going to easily go back. And so, you know, we're really proud of a record that has seen job creation, that has seen wages go up, that has seen working people feel really seen and heard. And I think one reason this was special is there's so many attacks right now on immigrants and on immigrant workers, and, you know, the threats of mass deportation and the like. Those kinds of things are not just harmful to the economy, not just harmful, you know, in workplaces, but they're deeply contrary to, you know, in America that has always been a place that people come to seek a better life and to make America better. That's the story of Philip and Larry and Peter. And so we're going to continue to tell those stories, and the work of the Department of Labor will have to continue.
When you see the plate on the wall, the Hall of Honor, my hope is that we will not think of today as an endpoint, but rather as a call to action. Justice is not a gift from the powerful. It is a demand of the brave. Let's keep their fight for justice alive until every worker gets a just day's pay for a hard day's work, until every worker gets to come home healthy and safe at the end of the workday, until every worker gets benefits so they can go to the doctor if they get sick without fearing that they're going to break the bank, until every worker has a real voice in the job and every worker is treated with respect, until every worker can say, as President Biden always says, look their children in the eyes and say, everything's gonna be okay, and really mean it. So that fight lives on. We are part of that fight, and I'm grateful to be with all of you in it.